Hello here and welcome again to another edition of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, spring football in the books. Now we're turning that page to transfer portal season, and it came at us hot and hard. Monday was quiet, but then Tuesday and Wednesday, we got a nice little six-pack of transfer news, at least as of taping time. Couple of quarterbacks, Logan Smothers, Richard Torres go in the portal for Nebraska. The biggest name by far, defensive lineman Stephen Wynn Jr. in the portal. 6-year senior Braxton Clark, who really wasn't a factor at all this spring in the portal. Then a couple of wide receivers that were kind of sandwiched between the veterans that were going to play and then the incoming guys coming in, Victor Jones and Sean Hardy. They go in the portal. So I would say 5 of these 6 I would label a standard portal things, with Stefan Wynn being the one that, you kind of just wonder what's his big picture thought here.
Well, yeah, you kind of do. First of all, now I said this on another show, but I'm just going to establish this. I'm surprised that nobody in the world that enters the portal. There's not a player in America that would enter the portal that would surprise me at this point. If Marvin Harrison Jr. enters the portal today, it won't surprise me. It's just that's the way the world is now. I mean, there's a lot of weird things. Hunter Dickinson entered the portal, the Michigan center. Ryan Nemhart entered the portal. I mean, how do you explain it? Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean there's some that have bigger impacts than others. None of these are particularly impactful except for Wynn.
Well, and what's his loyalty to Nebraska? He'd been here less than a year.
Right. I mean, when he was interviewed late in the spring, he said the words, "I'm just trying to make the best of a bad situation." I was like, is it really that bad here? I kind of like it. He's a loss. When you lose a big body,
like a 24-year-old grown man.
Yeah, that's a loss,
especially at a position that was already thin.
Right.
I mean,
absolutely.
The numbers were already an issue, and he was a guy that you would at least establish towards the front of that depth chart as a guy that would be part of it. If they could recruit him in the portal, then great. But if not, then he could be a fixture in that rotation. And now they're left with even a bare cupboard.
Which begs the question in this case, did they tell him to move on? Was there something that we don't know?
Did he not like his role?
That could be
like that he was going to split snaps with Cam Linhart or something like that. Yeah. All I know is this, though: a year ago when he came, the price to get him was high, like from an NIL, because he was the prettiest girl in the bar at 2 a.m. at that point, and they were able to get him over Georgia. Like Georgia Tech thought they had him, and the perception out of Georgia Tech was like, man, Nebraska's NIL outbid us and got Stefan Wynn. So he was on a fairly sizable at that time market deal, probably to come to Nebraska with NIL involved. But now he goes back in, and I would imagine he's going to be a pretty marketable. I mean, Colorado's going to want him because they're going to want him.
They have I think
they need everybody.
I think they're down to 2 defensive line.
A guy like him is going to be, I think, highly attractive and marketable for people in the portal. Like his.
So again, why he's marketable here?
Yeah, but how much? I mean, I'm guessing more people are going to want him. Even I don't know, but yeah, you're right. It's
free agency. You're going to go out there and find the highest bidder. When you put yourself on the market as a guy that's played significant snaps at 2 Power 5 programs. I mean, that's at this time of year, you're going to be a hot commodity, and you're probably going to make a lot more than what you probably would have been making here at Nebraska, just because there's going to be a team that is more desperate to get a guy like that. Yeah, exactly.
Again, yeah, it's interesting. That one's interesting to me. I mean, for a lot of reasons, mostly the ones we discussed. He was a rotational player last year. Mm-hmm.
And a bit underwhelming.
22 tackles, and 9 of them came against Georgia Southern.
Considering what he was and the price tag that Sean just talked about, the Alabama guy, like you thought this was like a future pro, and he was a depth guy.
Right. He still believes he's a future pro. Yeah. Again, going back to his spring comments, he wants to. His plan this year was, okay, I'm gonna put it on film that I can play in the NFL. And maybe it's possible he felt like he wasn't going to get the reps to do that at Nebraska.
And it was probably, I mean, you got to think in his mind, he might have known he was going to do this all along. Who knows?
Yeah.
I honestly think if you wait till the spring, it just from what we're seeing right now, there's less out there right now. So like you become
less talent.
Yeah, less available
in the portal.
Yeah. I mean, you become pretty. Look at Alante Brown. He's got Colorado. He's got Michigan State.
Purdue.
He's got Purdue, among others. Alante Brown's got 3 that we know of quality Power 5s right there.
Yep. Those are. You're right. That's good.
Where here he was guaranteed nothing. You know, he was going to have to like re-earn everything back. Now he's going to be the new girl walking in the hallways. I'm in on these 2 a.m.
Abby's just rolling her eyes over there. I'm sorry, Abby. I'm
being cringy, Abby. Sorry.
A little street there, South though.
Yeah, it's the South though.
Hey. Now you're going to kill me for asking this, or you're going to be happy. I don't know. It depends on your answer. Is On3 have a ranking of the available players in the portal?
They do. Yes, we have a transfer portal wire page. That ranks.
Does it basically rank them?
Yes.
Oh God.
And that's what Matt Zenith and his crew do. You know.
Okay,
like,
I'm glad I asked
the whole time. So yeah, we definitely have like a transfer portal page for On3 that ranks the top available players.
Do you know how many?
Let's see. The top available player right now. Let's see.
That's fine. Just do it.
Travis Hunter.
He's
okay. That's what I saw. I wondered if
it
really
speaks.
Yeah. So
it speaks to what Sean said.
Available though. I'm not talking guys that are available now.
There you go. Best available.
Okay.
Best available is Jordan Hudson, the TCU transfer, wide receiver.
Star. How many stars?
Former 4-star.
Okay.
So yeah, he's looking to go to Auburn or SMU. It's saying Jaleel Tucker. Is an Oregon guy as a corner that is, up there. So yeah, there's not a lot in there. Like I felt like last year there was more. I mean, O'Shawn Mathis and some of the guys that Trey Palmer.
To put in perspective, Victor Jones is 100th.
Okay.
On the transfer portal rankings.
Okay.
Like where's Alante Brown at? Let's see. For some reason he hasn't come up.
Neither does Win.
Okay. They're fresh. I mean, Win's really fresh.
Yeah, it's a very fluid tool.
Right.
But the quarterbacks, I'll be like Richard Torres. He'll end up at Texas San Antonio or somewhere like that. I'm sure Kansas State wanted Richard Torres at high school. He'll have opportunities. He's got 4 years. Just wasn't going to work here. Logan Smothers. You wonder if
junior.
You think that was a forced move, or do you think that was his move?
That's a good question because they're looking for that position to run, which is his forte. And he's an okay thrower. I mean, we always talked about his arm strength being an issue, and it was. I think they probably Sean forced. I think we got to be careful with the words we say. I don't think Rule forces anybody out. I think he tells them where they're at.
He's got a very honest picture.
Well, though they have to force some guys out because of the roster. Like they can not ask you back on your roster spot.
Okay.
I mean, they have to. They're over by like.
I mean, if you presented to Logan Smothers that you're not in the top 3, I mean, you're just not. And it's going to be hard for you to crack that. Then what?
I mean, imagine an airplane. It's an oversold airplane right now. And you're asking people who wants to get off, take the vouchers, get off now. And if they don't get enough people off the plane,
right,
then all of a sudden,
then you gotta
then you start taking people off based on the fare class of their ticket. Like whatever letter grade their fare class they bought at is. And then they force you off the plane.
Right.
So
did they? Yeah.
So yeah, Matt Rule's in this stage where they're offering free vouchers and hotels and miles to people to get off the plane. But if they don't get enough people off the plane, they got to start taking people off the plane.
Yeah, I think it's going pretty well so far.
No, so far, yeah.
And six down, and
when Win is like the biggest stunner, like okay,
6 down. Now, how many to go is
that's and
7.
Will there be bigger names?
Right.
That's what we need to find out.
Yeah, what I'm watching closely is kicker.
Okay,
Timmy Bleak Road, that one to watch. Like, can they keep him and
carrying 2 scholarship kickers? That's
how often is that done?
I don't know,
Sean. 2 scholarships
seems rare.
Major League, when Jake Taylor goes, look, it's a great idea. We're keeping 3 catchers this year, Skip, and Jake Taylor and the Skip goes, we're not. Like you just don't do it. I mean, it's just not.
Yeah, it doesn't seem sound
financially. You can't. I mean, the books don't say. And
right.
And Albano is a generational talent, Bleak Road, I mean,
Bleak Road missed from 43 and 46 in the spring game. The wind was
made a
definite,
49-yarder.
Made a 49er. He missed from 43 and 46. Wind was a big factor. I mean, he was basically kicking into a swirl. Into it. It was swirl. It always swirls in that stadium. So it's really hard to deal with. But I watched it. He probably should have made the 43-yarder.
So we're not.
I mean, it's a 43-yarder.
Yeah, Alvano didn't have any problems a few months ago.
Yeah.
So we're not done. Lots to keep up on, but 6 names officially in the portal as of Wednesday afternoon for Nebraska. When we come back, let's delve more into offensive storylines out of the spring. We're turning the page, looking ahead now from what we've learned and what's next. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, as we are talking spring football. We hit on transfer portal out of the gates. I want to close spring ball on just the offense and kind of where this unit's at, kind of what's next, what we liked, what our concerns were. And let's start with that. I'll start with what I liked. I liked Jeff Sims and just how fluid he made his throws. He was 9 of 13, had a nice touchdown run. And we've talked about this already. I think it's going to be tough for Casey Thompson, but how that battle looks will be something to watch. I liked Billy Kemp and what he brought to the table this spring. And I think I like just the running back depth of where they're at. I don't know who the number 1 is, but I think they've got depth, and that's good.
Yeah, and everybody's got to say, what about the offensive line? I thought in the spring game, I was just telling you guys off air, my initial thought was they really struggled. After watching it on TV, rewatching the game, I wouldn't say they struggled that much. Pass blocking even wasn't that bad. Now, there
were a few glaring plays.
There's a few glaring plays where, like, Cam Lenhart ripped around the edge.
Mm-hmm.
I think Uman Aylan did that. I don't know if I pronounced his name right. Prince Will. Kai Walling had some moments, but generally I thought they held up pretty well. Now, run blocking, running backs didn't put up numbers. I mean, you can't portray it any differently. They didn't. None of those guys. I think the longest run was 11 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. The offensive line was, I would say, fine.
I thought the push in the run game initially, like with that top group,
got some.
I mean, it was serviceable. I mean, I think that's something that if that's consistent, you'll take that. I mean, when you're getting 2 or 3 yards downfield with that push, I mean, they were winning a lot of times off the ball, which could not be said several times or in several games last season.
Right.
So I took that as a positive.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just wonder what's Prohaska going to bring when he comes back.
Yeah, he didn't play at
all. Are we going to get the Teddy Prohaska as a freshman that we're still thinking about today? Are we going to get the one that was a little bit sluggish last year that came back too early that got hurt? And you heard Teddy say he was 330 pounds. He put on a lot of weight in this. So I think for Teddy,
last year?
Yeah, over the shoulder surgery rehab, he put on weight, and during the knee, he said he lost weight. So the way is, he's got to get himself quick enough, because the kick steps of those tackles has been a major liability. I mean, some of the worst I've ever seen on any offensive line anywhere the last few years, when in the Pro Football Focus grades reflect that, as Nebraska's been ranked dead last 2 years in a row for all Power 5 football for offensive pass blocking protection.
How much do you think this emphasis with strength and conditioning on mobility and bending will improve pass blocking when you're talking about having 2 tackles that are 6'10" and however tall Benhart is, 6'8", 9. The fact that, Benhart talked about that, like right before the spring game when he did his interview session. He talked about how the biggest difference for him has been that emphasis to where he's able to bend, he's able to get low and get leverage. And it just seems for the big guy like that, that's critical.
Yeah.
The run game is fine because you're dictating it. But when you're reacting, you got to be able to move. And I wonder if this emphasis on movement, mobility, flexibility, all that stuff, how much that's going to help those 2 tackles in particular when it comes to that pass block conversation.
I think it would help. Come on. Look at Benhart. Megan had that. Oh, there's a photo of him right there. Look at him. I mean, his upper body he's trim. He's lean. Now, listen, you know this.
Teddy too.
You cover basketball. If you don't have quick feet, you don't have quick feet. if you have big ankles and you can't move, that's not.
Mhm.
It doesn't really matter what your upper body looks like. So I don't know.
But if you don't have
This-
leverage, I mean,
That's true.
You can be fast. You're just going to get knocked back.
Right, that's true. So I'm not going to make any predictions about that line.
No, that's still the number one concern for me
Has to
on this
be.
entire team.
Has to
It
be.
was going into the spring. It still is. And
Has to be.
there's been a lot of encouraging reports,
Mhm.
but from what we've seen, it didn't do much to change that level of concern.
You know what the
for
good
me.
news, Rob and Sean, is? We're going to find out right away. That's the beauty of a game like Minnesota.
Absolutely.
You're going to find out right away how much
A
progress. they made.
legit Big Ten line program.
A line that's had a lot of success against Nebraska's offensive line.
Now, on
over
the
last
flip
few years.
side, Colorado, like I like this matchup for Nebraska. 'Cause
Yeah.
Are you telling me that Deion Sanders is going to basically be able to bring in an expansion team of new players,
That's a good
get
point.
them fed,
Yeah.
trained, used to the altitude in a few months' time? I don't think
Yeah,
so.
you can go get a bunch of good players. Doesn't mean they're going to gel together and be. They're not going to have a full practice together until the start of fall camp.
I don't
I mean,
know
think
how
about
can be
that.
possible.
Let alone, like-
80% of your roster is not on campus yet.
How does that work?
Let alone getting used to the altitudes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not easy.
No,
Like-
you're right.
And and it's always a risk with portal guys in general. And now you're building an entire team through the portal. Good luck.
I just think it's going to be a slow build there. Come on, like you're saying, this isn't like Lincoln Capitals indoor football Pershing Auditorium.
Great reference.
Right. I mean, you just can't put together a team like
Yeah.
that in major college football.
I agree.
Yeah.
You're listening here to the Husker Online show as we talk some more storylines on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, the question now is, do they need to go in the portal? Where would they go? I mean, I think offensive line, when I look at this team, that's the only thing you would go for. But
Really? Would you go right now?
well, if you found the right guy, but
It's a big if.
are you going to, I don't think you're going to
Yeah.
find the right guy. That's the problem.
I don't think that's one of the positions, Sean. With due respect, I wouldn't mess with it.
Rule kind of hinted at that
Right.
too.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to find the right kind of guy.
Well,
portal.
yeah, and it's not like they're really hurting for depth there.
No, and I think everyone's like, I mean, that's where they could have got the Stanford guy, Walter Rouse.
Right.
That's
He wouldn't have practiced this spring though.
because he was going to
had a knee injury. No, he had a knee injury.
Yeah,
He wasn't. We wouldn't have seen Walter Rouse this spring.
Yeah.
So
Right
I don't.
Right now, you're getting Hunter Anthony. You know, like they're getting that caliber
Kevin
of player,
Williams,
like
Hunter
like a depth guy.
Yeah.
Like you're not getting an instant impact plug and play starter. And
Probably
if you
Probably
if
not.
that player is available, Nebraska's chances, because everybody's going to want that guy. Like every power team in the country.
So where do you look? I mean, I think you could use another big time receiver. Again, hard to find big time, but maybe you get a bigger body, a taller, longer receiver. Xavier's good, and if Xavier Betts is a third option, which it looked like on Saturday, Kemp being the first option,
Mhm.
Washington being 1B. If Xavier Betts, who started, if he's your third option, you're pretty good there.
Garcia Castaneda there too.
Yep. Yeah, you're all right there. But you could use maybe if there's one that presents himself and is interested, I wouldn't turn it down. Now, you could say that about almost any position.
Right.
If a good player presents
That's
himself,
the thing. It's got to be the right guy.
Yeah.
The right place, right time, all that sort of stuff. So
defensive line. I mean,
that's the priority.
yeah, defensive line.
yeah. And I mean, now with the win thing,
And I'm talking big body defensive line. the
Interior.
thing about that scrimmage is what it showed me is those guys like Princewell and Cam Lenhart they look ready to me.
Yeah.
And so it's less of a priority on the outside linemen, more of a priority on the big
Maverick Noonan too.
on the big. Yeah, Noonan's pretty good too. Bigger priority on the polar bears, and like guys that look like Stephon Wayne.
And I think there's a thought though, like for Matt Rule, like he's not necessarily just worried about next year. He's looking in the big
That's a
picture.
good point, Sean.
And I talked to somebody, from the Frost regime this week about that. And he's like, probably the biggest mistake we did was we tried to do too much in that first year, tried to bring in too many guys where they would have been better off maybe taking 15 guys and then holding 10 spots to use in 2019 instead of overdoing the 20. You get so anxious.
Oh, you got that's the world.
I mean, it's speed
It's
dating.
hard to sell
Like,
slow build in this world.
No doubt.
It's hard to, but
It's never been harder.
But it's
You can make
hard
the
to
case, right.
speed date and put together a successful marriage.
Yeah, there's got to be a fine line in that conversation somewhere.
Like, you can't really learn enough about a recruit
right
in a week.
No,
I mean,
no, it's bizarre right now.
really is.
Yeah, that speed dating world's bizarre. I mean, so it can produce some bizarre results.
all right. When we come back, let's shift to defense, because there was a lot to talk about with Tony White and what's next for that group. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washington, just reminiscing some. We were talking about that oversold plane analogy, reminiscing some fun travel stories here off the air.
Yeah, in Ireland.
In Ireland.
God, I can't go back there fast enough.
Our Florida State guys at War Chant, they're already working with the game organizers to kind of set up their deal like we had.
You're not setting it up for them?
I opened the door for him.
U.S. ambassador to Ireland at this point.
Sean would be a great one.
I think he would.
I mean, I had to take down an entire rumor of the game being moved to Vegas by just internet people that wanted to take down the trip that had no truth to it at all. And everyone was mad at me. I'm like, the game's not moving to Vegas.
Right.
It's staying in Ireland.
Gotta love it.
Strange.
Gotta love it.
Gotta love it.
Gotta love the internet and the rumors. But
Yeah.
let's shift the focus now to Nebraska's defense. Tony White. We got our first look at the 3-3-5. I saw a lot of flying around. I saw a lot of playmakers. I love MJ Sherman. I love the young guys. We hit on Stephon Wynn now leaving. He was working with that number 2 defense. There's definitely some things to like about this team, but I still think, can this work in the Big Ten? Can you be undersized and play fast in this league, or do you need to have the big bodies to match up late in the year?
Well, they have some big bodies, and I think they have enough. Probably not enough.
I don't think they do.
They do have material, though. They have some explosion.
They're way better on the edges, it seems.
Yeah. The 3-3-5. Now, you notice that a lot of the time they're not in a 3-3-5. I mean, it's a lot of 4 down. They're in a 4-man front a lot of the time. They'll move in and out, like most teams do. That's why I never get too wrapped up in that discussion. But I like some of the material. I just watch the game and think, what's this team? How's it project into the autumn? Looks pretty good. I mean, I think they look like a team that can play in a bowl game. They're not great. They have deficiencies. The main one being, and let's be honest, my NFL players, surefire, do you see out there right now that'll be in the draft next year? You got to think about that. Surefire.
Newsome, maybe.
Yeah, Newsome, I would say Newsome. There's not many you can just reel off next year. So that's
like, you can't even say Reimer at this point.
No, not really. I mean, he's a good college player. He's arguably their best player on defense. But no, you can't really. He's a little undersized.
Like Ty Robinson, you can't say.
Right now. It's hard. There's guys that eventually, I think.
Yeah, that have the potential.
Yeah,
but they're not there yet.
Right. I'm talking about next year.
They're on no early mocks that are going to be posted on Saturday night and Sunday morning.
So I try to do that where I look at it that way, because you're playing opponents that do have that.
Yep.
You're playing Michigan that you could go to their starting lineup right now and probably pick 5 guys that are going to be NFL draft picks.
And they're number 2s.
So some of that, yeah. So I try to think of it that way. All Americans, all Big Ten players. Are there surefire all Big Ten players out there that you saw? No, there's really not. So I think we have to ramp up that discussion.
Well, and who's the only draft pick for Nebraska, like surefire right now? Trey Palmer. And you saw the impact what a draft pick can do in a game.
100%.
No doubt.
A draft pick changes a game.
That's just a draft
Jimmy's
pick.
and the Joes.
That's just a draft pick. Sean, you're old enough. Rob, you're old enough. You're old enough to remember when Nebraska had All-American players. Now, the last one was Levante David. That was 2011. That's the last All-American.
To State College. They're playing a top 10 Penn State team without Joe Paul. It's 2nd and 2. Levante David stuffs them. It's 3rd and 1. Levante David stuffs them. It's 4th and 1. Levante David stuffs them. Game over.
Look at their last first rounders and just the impact those players had. Randy Gregory, or it would have been a first rounder. You know,
he
like
would
those
have
types of
absolutely. He's going to be a
Prince
top 5 pick.
Prince Amukamara. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about like elite level players that have gone on to have
Right.
long NFL careers, and
Mhm.
like that's the difference.
Like
That's
Jake Locklear, remember how good he was a first round draft pick quarterback in Nebraska's secondary in Seattle, made him look
Locked
silly.
him down. Yeah, now and that's what I'm saying. We have to get back to we have to emphasize that part of the discussion. I mean, again, you haven't had an All-American at Nebraska since 2011. Okay, you haven't had an All-American offensive lineman at Nebraska since 2001. Okay, what do we always say? You got to win in the trenches. They used to regularly produce All-American offensive linemen at Nebraska. Regularly. You can just look at the decade. Look at the decade of the 90s. There were 6 or 7. 8, I think. There are 8 in the 90s. Go back to the 80s, there were some. If you just look at the 2000, Nebraska had 2 of them, Russ Holstein and Dominic Rayola. They had 2 All-American offensive linemen. Okay. And you know, he had Finoti in that group. He had 3 guys. That's what it takes. I mean, that's what you need.
Well, even just like an all Big Ten level player. I mean,
not even
like,
just all American.
I'm talking not second, third team.
Don't minimize it all the time.
I mean, a first team all Big Ten
Then
player.
you're probably almost
you're really an all American.
Yeah, you're almost.
I mean, when the league is now like
right.
16 teams.
I mean, go to the 90s when you had Stein, Uyghur, All-American. You had Aaron Taylor, All-American. You had Shields, All-American. Now, those are just off the top of my head. I might have missed 1 or 2 in there. And that's what happened. And why do we never talk about it?
Well, I think we do when we talk about why Nebraska's not winning the Big Ten is line play.
Yeah.
And that's a direct
Gotta go get those guys.
correlation there.
And there's no shortcuts. You can maybe at some places have shortcuts to building a line because you have access to talent. Nebraska doesn't have access to talent. They have to build their lines the right way.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just, you're not in a highly populated area where you can just plug in guys.
Right.
Like you have to find guys, develop them, and teach them the right way.
Yeah, and the development. That's the part of it. They've gotten multiple NFL linemen over the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Guys that start. They're guys that are captains on their team. But they're for some reason, from their profile as a high school recruit to their NFL career, there's a lull when they come to Nebraska.
Or they play these guys.
That's a huge red flag.
They play these guys maybe a year or 2 earlier than they should.
Yeah, they're not quite ready.
And then they're not ready.
Like Nick Gates getting thrown into the fire
Turner
right away.
Corcoran. Think about Turner Corcoran.
Yeah, it's a great example.
Like his best game was the Rutgers game when he first came out, when he took over from Brandon Hymas, and Brandon Hymas
left early
for the Rutgers game in 2020. And then we never, then he tried to play Hurd in 2021 at Illinois, and he hadn't been the same since.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just has not been that level of player that we saw where we were at Rutgers. We're like, man, this guy's going to be the next great one.
It goes back to what we said. It's hard in this world, and it's hard at Nebraska to be patient. I mean, it gets hot here fast. And
yeah, because there's like 85 hours of talk radio a day.
Yeah.
There's 55 of us at practice.
We're doing 3 podcasts a week.
There's 55 of us interviewing a 3rd string quarterback at practice.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's good and bad.
It's good and bad. Yeah.
It's not all bad. I mean, the kids love that attention. It's not all bad. I mean, you'd rather have it that way than crickets.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is the reason these kids are making the NIL money
Right.
they're making right now. So there's a trade-off.
There's a big trade-off.
So it will be interesting to see, though, in the portal, if Nebraska pursues anybody and what Matt Rule will do with those scholarship numbers, as they're still trying to get to 85, but will they make room to add any more players? And I think a lot of that will depend on who are those players available. All right, when we come back, we're going to bring in Abby Barmore, take some questions in the mailbag next. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sibyl, Robin Watson, still talking about Ireland off air, but time to take your questions in the mailbag. Let's welcome in Abby Barmore. Very busy week for Abby Barmore. Not only wrapping up spring practice, she did a great depth chart breakdown for us on Husker Online this week after the spring game. But you got volleyball. Number one, Huskers are in Central City for their big scrimmage on Saturday, but also the tickets went on sale for the game in Memorial Stadium. That's going to be the largest volleyball crowd ever in the history of the sport. What can you share with us, Abby, on this weekend and then the future ticket sales?
Yeah, starting off with the ticket sales, they actually opened the south side because they had been selling so many tickets. So it's looking very good that they're going to absolutely crush that record, and no one's ever going to try to compete with it. And as for the exhibition match this weekend, it's against Wichita State at 2 o'clock. Nebraska has a lot going on. They have 6 new players that they're trying to bring in, and that's almost half of their roster. So those are going to be some girls you want to look at. And most importantly, Merritt Beeson, the transfer from Florida, she's going to be on that right side, and she's going to bring a lot to that team. And that setter battle too. They have Kennedy Orr coming back, and then freshman Bergen Riley that is really going to push her and force her to be great, which she kind of struggled with last year. So there's a lot to watch this weekend.
Are you looking forward to going to Central City?
Oh, yeah. Big Central City fan. I have not been. It'll be an experience.
All right, I'll tell you, this is a random nugget about Central City. They
of course you know things about Central City.
They have the nicest Dairy Queen I've ever seen.
Noted.
Like a built from the ground, like stone. Like you go up there and you're just like, this is the Taj Mahal Dairy Queen.
Is that right?
Yeah, and it was
have you seen it recently?
Oh yeah,
really?
We got some friends that have a cabin up there, so we've gone up there. But Dan Jackson, our friend, he's now at Vanderbilt. He was recruiting a guy, and he's like, "I'm just sitting up here in Central City." And he goes, "I go, let me guess, you're at the Dairy Queen." He goes, "How'd you know?" I go, "That's about the best place to go in Central City."
Interesting.
I'll have to check it out.
Drive by the big Dairy Queen.
How does it compare to the Crete Dairy Queen? The Crete Dairy Queen's really nice.
Small towns in Nebraska, you don't mess with their Dairy Queens or their Pizza Huts.
Okay. God,
I just drove the Wahoo Pizza Hut. I drove through Wahoo last night, and it was hopping.
Serious pizza.
You would have thought it was 1987. I mean, this Pizza Hut was rolling.
God darn.
All right, let's get to the mailbag. What do you got?
All right, what players can make the biggest push in the summer?
Casey Thompson?
Well, that's when the push begins. I mean, June is big. I know I can tend to repeat myself. I'm old, and that's what we do when we get older. But the June, I can remember when Robin and I and Sean were doing the interviews last summer. It was almost like we were talking last summer, June, like we were talking to players in season, right? It almost felt like that they call it it's kind of unorganized, but it's really not unorganized.
Yeah, it's voluntary, quote unquote. But
yeah, even the players give you the quotes, voluntary.
It was like every day. Like they would show up to those things like exhausted because they'd already been up since 5 or 6 in the morning working out and doing all that stuff. So I mean, there's no off season. There's no sitting around going on dude trips or anything like that.
Push Gunnarsson, I think that's a guy. It's interesting that position got interesting because of Lenhart and Princewell. So what I mean, Gunnarsson's gonna have to fight now for time. All those guys are gonna have to fight for time. But Blaze Gunnarsson's an example, a guy that comes to mind. Who else?
Well, let's think about the guys that were out.
Marquise Buford.
Yeah, Buford, Robinson. Guys that haven't practiced
right
really at all.
Yeah.
That
thank God for Robinson.
Yeah, I know. He becomes significantly more important now.
Yeah.
AJ Allen.
Those receivers, AJ Allen.
Oh, AJ Allen's a great example. He needs to have a good summer.
There's some young receivers that are going to show up. They're going to have a big window of opportunity to make a statement.
Does AJ Allen want to battle? We know what this kid can do. Does he want to fight? Because
we saw a fight last year.
Right. It's a new staff, though.
That's true.
They're clean slate, and they like Gabe Irvin.
And he missed a big chunk of time this spring, so he's got some work to do.
Yeah.
All right, next question.
With Casey Thompson starting to throw, how do you see the quarterback competition going during the summer?
That will be interesting because Casey's not going to just back down.
Nope. He will not back down.
But it will make both those guys better.
Right.
It will.
The question is, can Casey do enough damage as a runner to present to that staff? Yeah, I can do this. That's probably the question, because Casey is a better thrower, but definitely a better downfield thrower. He is. I mean, I've heard about Sims this spring. I've seen Sims. He's a good thrower, but Casey's a better downfield thrower. So I don't know. It comes back to what exactly is the staff looking for?
Yeah. And, the durability factor. Casey's got a long history of injuries now that he played through, but he's been banged up.
So, so has the other guy. So is Sims.
Yeah.
He was banged up a lot at Georgia Tech. They've missed a lot of time.
So
both
that
of
in
them.
itself would be incentive for both those guys. I mean,
Absolutely.
Even if you don't win the starting job,
if you're going to run that position, no way they're getting through unscathed.
They need them both. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
I think so.
If they can figure this out, they're going to need them both, hopefully, at some point. Next question.
What freshman could make the biggest impact this fall?
Geez, those two edge rushers looked.
Cam Lenhart doesn't look like a freshman.
No, he doesn't. Those guys look like they can make an
Uman
impact.
Yellen.
Yeah, that's well. Yeah.
I mean, would it be stunning if either one of those guys won a starting job?
No,
they're high on Princewell.
I'd say one of them. I think will.
In fact, you almost wonder if that factored into win. Princewell and
maybe
then
they're
Lenhart.
different though.
They're defensive end. I mean, they play off. I mean, they're defensive ends inside the 3-4 or the 3-3-5.
Win
wasn't really a nose, was he?
Yeah.
I mean, he played.
He was.
So he was the backup to Nash.
Yeah, he's a nose.
So he was okay. Well, but he could play off and play on.
They all have to. It just depends on what they're facing and how you're lined up. So I don't like to get into that discussion. But Win is a 310 pounder or 320 pounder, and Princewell is probably 240. So they're those different players. Princewell's literally said he worked to get up to 239.
I mean, they were working him at linebacker this spring.
Right. Win is a 300 pounder. Different. They're asking different things of those guys, Sean.
Next question.
What position group or players is Nebraska hope that they're going to get through the transfer portal?
Offensive line.
I mean, yeah,
defensive line.
Defensive line 1,
defensive.
Yeah, defensive line 1, offensive line 2.
I mean, trying to find one of those guys.
Yeah, good luck.
It's like I'm going to try to lose 10 pounds this week. I mean, it's just not easy to do. I'm going to just go on a diet and lose 10 pounds. Yeah. I mean, that's like what it's like to find one of those
by Monday. Yeah, I know. I mean, again, what I just say about the portal is if you ask a coach that question, Abby, first of all, they'll say, well, you're always looking for big bodies. And then usually the answer is, if there's a good player, we're interested. And he's interested in us, we're interested. Doesn't matter the position. Quarterback would be very interesting. I don't think you'll see it.
Next question.
We saw 2 Big Ten football coaches fired last season. Both were in the middle of the season. Going into this season, which coaches are on the hot seat?
What about Kirk Ferentz?
Geez, I don't think he's on a hot seat.
Well, it's tense there with his son.
Not to the point where it's like a mid-season firing, certainly.
No, he's like the
king of just it's getting dicey there, though. Like
the Indiana coach, I think.
Yeah.
You wonder about Fitzgerald, too. Now, you could come back and say, isn't he like Ferentz, kind of the king? But, man, they're coming off 3-9 and 1-11.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 3-9 and 1.
The portal era has crushed them.
Now they are making a huge investment with all the new facilities there. They have just built that.
Yeah, but if you can't get into school there as a transfer, it's pretty hard. I mean, they don't just let you transfer to Northwestern. You have to meet their criteria to get in there.
So that being said, I guess how big of a priority is it to go get a splash hire when you have an established identity and a face of your program in Fitzgerald that recruits the type of players that you want, and you've made all this investment to helping him? I don't know.
3-9, 1-11.
They have another year like that.
I think they stick with them though. Like I mean,
Christmas. I mean, how far can you let it go? That's the question.
The thing is, they've been. 3 years ago they won the West, right?
Yes, 3 years ago in the COVID year.
Yeah,
in the COVID year.
So I mean, before that, it was like every other year they were competing to go to the Big Ten championship. So like they're not that far removed from having a really successful.
I guess what I would say, we're a little more patient with the Northwestern coach than we are with the Nebraska coach.
Well, and they had a left tackle that's going to be a first-round pick. Their quarterback was at South Carolina, and he beat Georgia in the game.
Let's see if Rule throws a 3-9 and 1-11. What we're talking about, right? I mean,
well, the problem with
Northwestern, different. It's a different conversation.
More opponent fans go to their games than Northwestern. Like, who are the Northwestern fans is like the bigger question. Like, do they even really have a fan base? That locally all their graduates leave.
Right. So back to the question: Is it Tom Allen? Is he an obvious?
He's definitely up there.
Yeah,
definitely.
Who else would be on that list?
I mean, there's so many new coaches.
Like Rutgers is fine.
Right.
Maryland's fine.
What if Michigan houses Ohio State again?
Yeah, it's not mid-season, but Well, no, that's a legit question.
I mean,
It is legit.
the
question.
expectations
No,
at
that's
Ohio
legit.
State are so outrageous.
You lose 3 straight times to Michigan and you don't win the Big Ten 3 straight years? Oh, you're in trouble.
Not
That's what I'm
just
saying.
lose, but get it jammed up you.
Yeah,
I mean,
embarrassing.
I mean, it was like a hardball,
graphic.
like paddling. Sorry, guys, if that got
a little graphic. Sean.
that rattle the fan base here of the Husker Online show.
Yeah, no, Dave would be in trouble. No, I'm not. You
No,
would
I
be.
mean, I kind of said that somewhat tongue in cheek, but I think there's
No,
a
I've
bit
told
of
that
validity to that.
Yeah, I've told that story. I was standing in my kitchen almost in utter amazement when they introduced Day as the head coach. And at the podium, Gene Smith, the AD, puts his arm on his shoulder and says, and we expect to win them all.
Mm.
I was just like, Jiminy Christmas.
Man.
Expect to win them all. He said, and we expect to win them all.
That's how
When
Nebraska used to be.
Wisconsin hired the coach that Ohio State probably would have hired, Luke Fickell.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, would that?
I
if,
think so.
if Day would have left to the NFL, don't you think Luke Fickell would have been one of the first guys they went after?
Yep. I do. I think that's exactly right.
All right. Final question.
What are the top 3 favorite pizza places in Lincoln?
Isles for me, probably one.
Okay.
Isles is up
That
there.
was gonna be my pick.
Lazari's
Yeah.
too.
I've always been a Lazari's guy.
Isles,
Going back to the college
Lazari's.
days.
I just like Godfather. I really like Godfathers. Can I
Is there
say
any
that?
Godfathers left?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
there one in
33rd
Lincoln?
33rd, no.
Sipple doesn't cross. Oh, I forgot.
Yeah,
That's
right. I stand on the north side. That's on the south side, by the way. 30. It's on the south
By the
side.
Starbucks there.
Yeah, it's on the south,
I know where it's
south
at.
side of 33rd. No.
Ramos. I like Ramos.
Oh, sure. Ramos is good. Isles is pretty good. Isles is a great place to go. It's great
I
atmosphere.
just never go there because it's so far away.
I mean, you got to like
That's right.
carve out an extra hour to go there. I mean, that's the problem, but it's worth it.
Oh, it's worth it.
The taco pizza.
Oh
the,
God, that
the,
sounds good.
the
right now.
tower pizza.
Oh yeah, the tower.
I can't handle the tower thing at my age.
The tower. It's not. It's just hamburger pepperoni with like pepper. I mean, it's nothing like. It's not like a massive pizza. They just call it the Leaning Tower.
Okay.
It's not like some eating challenge here. It's just a hamburger pepperoni pizza
Man versus
with,
food over here.
with some peppers on it. You think it's like tower pizza?
It's just a standard.
That's like a.
Oh,
That's like.
The
I just
tower.
want a slice of pizza, a slice and a salad. All right.
Wait, we got to get a third one. You said Ramos?
Ramos. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Those are my 3.
Okay, we're gonna anger some
Oh.
people with this, but
I mean,
I know,
I do
yeah.
like for fast pizza, Blaze. You can't beat Blaze.
oh God,
I still have never
I've
had.
never had it.
that's. I mean, it's legit.
Oh wait, Momo's.
Oh,
yeah.
Jiminy Christmas, we forgot.
Sorry,
Okay,
Anthony.
changing my ranking.
Sorry, Anthony.
Yeah,
Ramos, you're off the list.
Sean, say
Sorry.
it again.
Momo's Momo.
Apologize to Anthony. He's your friend.
Oh yeah, no, Anthony.
He
I know Anthony. Oh yeah,
he lets
Dear
you
friend.
in. I mean, I can't even go to Momo.
they're in the 3. They're in my 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What's yours, Abby?
I love the Isles. That Leaning Tower.
God, really?
It's
It's
amazing.
too much for Sipple.
Yeah.
Careful, Abby.
All right, when we come back, Nebraska basketball. Some big news this week. We're going to close on that with Robin. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Final segment here of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, as we're talking Nebraska basketball and some recruiting notes here. But first, the big roster news, Robin. Keisei Tominaga declares that he'll enter the draft process with the opportunity to return to Nebraska. You broke that story this week on Husker Online, kind of sent some shockwaves, but a lot of guys do this.
Yeah, and it's to the point now. So the rule went into effect in 2019 where players can test the waters, is what they call it, of the draft process, hire an agent that's certified by the NCAA, and really take it all the way up through the combine and even in some cases through the draft and still maintain your college eligibility, which is a long time coming, should have always been that way. And so now players like a Keisei Tominaga, who, he's very much on the outside looking in my opinion, but at least he's going to have that opportunity. He's going to go through it and practice against other NBA draft hopefuls, be in front of NBA personnel, get feedback from NBA coaches and scouts about what he needs to work on. And just, that's so valuable to set the tone on where he actually stands going into the offseason, into this next season.
I have a question.
So he's going to go through it. I expect him to come back and be if not a starter, then a very integral part of the roster next year.
Okay, this is for you guys. okay, Robin, you cover the team every single game. Sean goes to every home game, and between bites of popcorn, watches the Huskers
and beer.
Yeah, I watch every single game. I mean, I try to not miss a possession. Okay, so the question is, what does Casey? You watch him. What does he need to show NBA scouts?
Defense, first and foremost, and his size is a concern. He's got to prove that won't be as glaring of a issue at the next level, and consistency. So far in his career, he's got a month and a half of excellent basketball. He's got to be able to show he can do that over the course of a full season and do it when he's the #1 player written on everybody's scouting report, that you have to stop him. And he did that towards the end of last year, which is why he's in this situation right now. But they're going to say, we need to see you do it for more than just a few weeks. Like, this can't be just a flash in the pan deal. So he's got to show he can be a more physical defender. He's got to gain weight first and foremost. And then he's got to just show that he can do it game after game after game throughout a whole season. Again, when he's the marked man on every single night.
Right. That's a good, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. About the time I start to rule him out, I look at, he shot 51% from the field in Big Ten.
And it wasn't just threes.
No.
Like, he was getting in the lane and making tough layups and stuff, like over much bigger. I mean, like, he was going up over Hunter Dickinson and making layups. Like,
I just can't rule him out.
Sam Hoiberg had a quote on him on the BTN thing that his left hand was literally built in a lab. That's how good Casey is, like with his left hand under the rim.
Yeah, he's extremely skilled. And if he can find a way to showcase that over his perceived weaknesses, then, he'll have a chance.
People scoff, though.
Yeah. I mean, he might not be a draft pick. He probably won't be a draft pick. That doesn't mean he can't make a roster. There's plenty of undrafted rookie free agents out there that can at least get in the G League and, take it from there step by step. Like, making the NBA doesn't mean you're a lottery pick. Like, it's not a one or only option. Like, there are plenty of ways to get there. And again, he's got the luxury of, if the NBA doesn't work out, he's going to make a big chunk of change back in Japan and be a hero that he is over there. So he's in a good spot.
You're a hero in Japan just by covering this guy.
Yeah, I'm probably the most well-known Nebraska basketball reporter in Japan.
Maybe the most well-known Nebraskan outside Warren Buffett in Japan.
Holy
right
God,
now.
Sean. Are you ready for that, Rob?
I was not ready for that. No.
I mean, it's Warren Buffett, though, and then Robin Washington.
I would not be ready for that.
But hey, let's stay on the topic here. Hunter Salas announces he's going to Wake Forest. Came in for the spring game.
Yeah.
And I could tell you didn't have a great feel for it. Like, you didn't really think it was going to materialize, and it went the direction of Wake Forest. It says, I don't get it. I don't understand. Like, whatever Wake Forest but he could be a star in this state and clearly doesn't want any part of it.
Yeah. And you just got to wonder how much that's a factor. Hunter's always been a low key kid. And if he comes to Nebraska, he's going to be in the spotlight, whether he likes it or not. A guy like Sam Griesel relished that. He loved every part of it. He wanted to be the face of the program. He's out there kissing babies and, signing autographs and doing all this stuff. That's not Hunter.
No, it's not.
Like, he's a low key, keep to himself type guy that I almost get the impression that on top of everything else Wake Forest was offering with, NIL opportunity on the court, all that sort of stuff, Steve Forbes development, all that stuff. He would be a basketball player there. He wouldn't be a statewide celebrity there. And so, that's just me speculating. I don't know that for sure, but just knowing what I know about Hunter, that kind of falls in line, where I wonder how much of that was kind of a deciding factor for him, where he didn't want all that would comes with the fishbowl he would be in at Nebraska as being the in-state former 5-star recruit.
But Sam Griesel handled it just fine.
But he's not. Sam
everybody's
built that way.
Yeah, not everybody.
Sam is built that way to be the face of a program. Hunter Salas, I do not believe he is.
Not everybody's the same. And Matt Rule, it's an athlete discussion. Matt Rule's talked about this world we're in now, where because of social media largely, everything's intensified. And Robin, you're 100% right. I will tell you this: if Hunter Salas would have committed to Nebraska, my interest level next season would have shot through the roof. I would have, because I'd be fascinated by it, by just that part of it. But you know what? Hunter maybe doesn't want that kind of attention.
Yeah,
like you're saying. Like,
and so with that conversation, I mean, it's disappointing. That's the word I keep using about this whole development, and the fact that Nebraska, once again, like they prioritized him. They got him on an official visit. You know, they put in a lot of time and effort in recruiting him. Fred Hoiberg spent Easter Sunday going to Spokane, Washington to do an in-home visit with him. So I mean, like they put in a lot of hours with this, and so it's disappointing on that front. It's disappointing in that Hunter would have checked a lot of boxes for what Nebraska needed in that lead guard role, where, you know, I thought, you go back to Gonzaga last year when they started playing their best ball at the end of the year, Hunter was playing a lot, and he was just kind of initiating the offense a lot in that. And so I think that he could have played that role, and then he's an elite level on-ball defender. And so that's something Nebraska's missing right now.
I noticed you're not using the word point guard.
Yeah, because I don't know. I say lead guard because Nebraska has like 3 or 4 guys on the floor at all time that can be a point guard. So like, I don't do point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center.
Now, there's a narrative out there, Robin, that people are saying, for instance,
you need a lead guard. That's what I'm saying.
What people are saying is that Nebraska is now 0 for 4 in point guard recruiting in the portal. They've missed out on Kerr Kriisa, West Virginia, Javion McCollum, Oklahoma, and Latrell Wrightsell to Alabama. Is Wrightsell true point?
No,
I didn't think so.
No, and Kerr Kriisa is a volume shooter at point. So is he a true point?
Right. Okay.
I mean, he led the Pac-12 in assists. So obviously, but you know, Alonzo Verge also was one of the Big Ten leaders in assists, and people couldn't stand him. So, you know, it's like.
Don't put me in that category.
The point guard position, look at the point guards Fred Hoiberg has had. There's not one mold. I mean, Delano Banton, Sam Griesel, Cam Mack, Alonzo Verge, like each one of them is entirely different from the other. And so I don't know if they have the specific idea. Like, look at McCollum to Salas, 2 totally different players.
Yeah, McCollum's a true point guard.
Yeah, but he's a smaller guy. Yeah. And so there's issues on the other end of the floor with his physicality, whereas Hunter, the offense is the question. His size and defense are his strengths.
All right. As we wrap it up, Robin, what are you watching this weekend?
We'll see if there's any visitors that get added. I mean, obviously with Hunter now in the books, they officially turn the page, and they do have other irons in the fire. I've been asked countless times who those names are. I don't know yet. Still working on that, and I think you'll start to see things move with that. There's probably a chance that there's names out there that aren't in the portal yet that could surface on Nebraska's radar. So that's the thing. People are panicking because of this 0 for 4 narrative, and there's something to be said for that. They've brought in guys on official visits and haven't capitalized. The portal's open until May 15th.
Okay.
And Emmanuel Bandamel didn't commit or even visit until May. Okay. So, I mean, like, you're getting close to the time you need to start getting, you know, a little worried and concerned, but I don't know if we're there just yet, especially over these next few days as these next wave of names start to make their way to the forefront.
Okay. All right. Lots to follow this week on Husker Online. It's the draft. We didn't even talk about the draft, but we'll focus on that more after the draft next week's over with. And we'll hit on headlines as well. On Friday, by the way, Trev Alberts will be joining us on Husker Online Headlines Friday. So make sure you join us for that show. We're going to tape Friday morning, right?
10 o'clock.
So
10 a.m. show.
We'll be joined by the AD on Headlines later here on the Husker Online channels as well. But thank you for joining us this week. Make sure you follow us, download us, subscribe to us here on the YouTube channel or anywhere that you can find podcasts.